What's up, everybody? I'm back in New York. It is Monday, August 30th. One more day left in the month. So, new highs today in NASDAQ and S&P. The Dow is kind of hanging in there, but I think we will see new highs in the Dow. I think we're going to see that 36,000. I sent out the new edition of MMT Trader. That is out. If you want to get a copy, go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com. Sign up for a 30-day free trial. A lot of positive stuff, but I am going to temper that with a mention of the month that we're coming into, September, and there's going to be some developments in September that we have to pay attention to. But before I get into that, first of all, fiscal flows are still very strong, running at 860 billion over last year. And the whole entire month of August, that year-over-year differential has been well over 800 billion. You got to go all the way back to April to see that wide of a differential year-over-year. It went down, May, June, July, and then it started picking up again in August. And I think I mentioned that, we had a spending trough in July, right? We had the unemployment benefits cuts in June. 26 states cut the supplemental unemployment benefits. I was talking about that. I said that's going to cause a slowdown in the fiscal flows. That happened, but then in July, that bottomed out, and we saw, very surprising, a pickup, like a modest re-acceleration of those flows. So that's very positive. The banking data is very positive, and that's also another, pleasant surprise. I think it kind of interesting, because we've had this situation with bank reserves, unprecedented amount of bank reserve assets being added to bank balance sheets. And normally, as I've been saying, like, the Fed has had to create a mechanism, which is a short-term mechanism, these reverse repos, just to, to remove that cash and take some of the burden off of the banks. But even with, every single week, I think we've seen something like, it was like the last 8 or 9 weeks, maybe a little bit more, we saw something like a 750 billion increase in reserves in a very short period of time. But even with that increase, the banks have been able to expand their lending, which is incredible. And it just, I think, it's a testament to the quality of bank balance sheets right now, in particular bank capital, that they're able to do that, because under those circumstances, you would think we would have a very sharp contraction in lending. Remember, all of these things, loans and the ability of banks to take on further assets, are constrained by regulatory ratios, the supplemental leverage ratio, where this is the problem with reserve assets. When the Treasury and the Fed keep dumping reserve assets on banks, on their books, it doesn't leave room for other assets like loans. But despite the fact that we have seen a record increase week after week in reserve assets, the banks have been able to expand lending. Now, it's not growing very fast, although auto loans are growing very fast. The growth rate is the highest in 5 years, but we are seeing a rebound in credit card, revolving credit, and other consumer loans. So it's incredible. If you think about it, if they get this, and I said this before, if they get this reserve situation under control, and that's why I think the taper actually is really bullish. Like, everybody's talking about, oh my God, the taper. This has been, the market has been just insanely focused, or I should say investors have been insanely focused, and the media too, on the taper, and what's Powell going to say about the taper? Is he going to do a taper? You stop adding reserves you're going to get another credit cycle, a boom in the credit cycle, because it's going to give the banks some breathing room finally. I mean, this is a perfect setup to what may be like a really explosive, a new period of explosive economic growth. You get another credit cycle going with the taper. And the irony of the whole thing is that, you know, everybody out there is saying, oh, they're going to take away the punch bowl. You know, it's quantitative tightening. These people, I mean, every day, folks, every day, I mean, the amount of nonsense and the amount of lack of understanding, I mean, it's incredible. And again, it's not just from the quacks and the goofballs out there. I mean, it's from the highest levels of Wall Street and the analytical community and the economics community. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. It really is. So the banks are looking really good. Fiscal flows are really good. Now, let me talk about September, because that, you know, I got to bring that up because there's some issues. Now, we're going to have the end of these unemployment benefits, these supplemental benefits. That's a 300 extra a week that everyone's been getting. That ends for everybody. And it did have an impact in June when the 26 states ended it, and now the rest of the states are going to end it too. So I expect to see a slowdown in the fiscal flows in September. But, and I think I mentioned this in some previous videos, there's going to be some offsets, all right? Social Security payments are expected to go up by a pretty decent amount because of the cost of living adjustment and, you know, inflation adjustment, whatever. Social Security is by far the biggest single line item expenditure of the government. And the cool thing about Social Security, I think anyway, from a fiscal flow point of view, is that it's like this stealth fiscal expansion that just, you know, keeps on giving. And the reason is a lot of my generation, the baby boomer generation, is coming into retirement age, and that means the roles of recipients, the numbers of recipients continue to grow every single year by a large amount. And that's probably going to be the case. I mean, I'm 64, like I'll be eligible for Social Security next year. I mean, you know, that's going to be the case easy for the next 5 to 10 years, that Social Security just keeps expanding. It just keeps expanding. So like, if you're talking about, anyone who's talking about, you know, going more to a fiscally conservative policy, like spending cuts, I mean, you basically can't. Because you know they're not going to cut defense, all right? And the big three, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those are, you know, it's a function of the aging population and eligibility and the baby boomers. They're just those programs are just going to continue to grow. So, I mean, you have like this tsunami of fiscal support for the economy. Now, you know, it was like on steroids because of the pandemic. But even that, I mean, once they set spending limits or spending levels, it's very hard to pull back from that. I mean, that remains. So we could get periodic, you know, slowdowns like we're coming into September right now. And the other thing I have to mention is the debt ceiling. I've been mentioning that. You know, I think Yellen has till probably around October 1st, maybe a little bit after, where she's able to finagle with extraordinary measures and whatever balance is left in the Treasury's account to make payments. But they got to raise the debt ceiling. Because if you have the cuts in unemployment benefits, and then, you know, she's got to essentially default on some payment items. They're not going to default on everything, but I mean, you know, some payment items, she's just not going to be able to make those payments. And again, the debt ceiling is a stupid, old-fashioned, self-imposed constraint. It goes back to 1917. We're on a gold standard back then. We're not on a gold standard anymore. It's a useless, idiotic thing that they should do away with. But I'm just bringing this up because as good as things are right now, like really bullish, like the market's just going to keep going up. I mean, you got major fiscal support. But you got to take care of those other things. So we'll have to see what happens in September. Anyway, it's all in my report today. Go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com. Sign up for a 30-day free trial. See you tomorrow. Bye.